Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Season 2, Episode 3 of Ventures Talk. For today's episode, we have me, Adeline, and Sam as your hosts. So we are final year students from Taylor's University, and we are here to represent Ventures PR. So we're very excited to be here today and to introduce all of you to our special guest, introducing the Chief Marketing Officer of AERODYNE, Richard Kerr. So if you're unsure about who Mr. Kerr is, he is a TEDx speaker that has tremendous interest in global startups and innovation ecosystems. Additionally, he is also a prolific Malaysian social media storyteller that has garnered a following on Twitter and Facebook. So hello, Richard. It's so nice to have you join us today on this wonderful evening.
Yes, hi, Adeline. Thank you very much. And Sam as well. Very delighted to be part of this. Hopefully we could do some interesting topics to talk about.
Thank you so much, Richard, for taking the time to be here today. So without further ado, let's jump right in, yeah? So to start off this session, I'd like to ask, as the CMO of AERODYNE, we have to assume that you'll be quite busy person, right? So we've also noticed that you're quite active on social media, especially Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So how do you find the time to balance your work and also curate content for your audience?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about having to juggle between work and the things that I've been doing on social media, right? So of course, at work, we focus a lot on doing the business related stuff, helping the company to promote its products and services, not just right here in Malaysia, but also globally. I also take a lot of time leveraging on the different marketing teams across different parts of the world where we operate. So in fact, AERODYNE operates in 35 countries across 6 different continents. So in terms of how do I develop the content? And of course, this has always been a part of my passion to storytell, especially leveraging on the social media. And of course, generating those ideas usually happen during the night or even during the day. Sometimes, when I just get the inspiration, I would just write it down on my phone and think about how do I create the story or content when I go home at night and posting them on social media. There's always a challenge, as you know, juggling between work and things that I'm passionate with. But you just have to find the time. I mean, there's always time. It's just whether you want to find it or not.
All right. Okay, that's a really nice way to put things about balancing. I want to dive a bit more into the social media side of things. So you are really prolific and really quite well known on multiple social media accounts. And you kind of notice that on Facebook and on Twitter, you kind of seem to have different posting styles. So from what I noticed, at least on Twitter, you create threads with little bite-sized information and facts, little tidbits. I really like that. And there are other amazing stories that you tell on Twitter as well. But on Facebook, you kind of repost tweets by screenshotting them, but you also share like things that are a bit more personal. So we notice like you share pictures of your cat. We assume that's your cat. We've seen pictures of you in Baju Melayu and like even pictures of your primary school as well. So is there a reason why you have like different posting styles for these separate platforms?
Yes, of course. I'm actually doing it strategically. As you know, each platform has its own algorithm. So it's really, I mean, I've been into the social media since 2007, I believe, when they started to launch Facebook, and even much earlier than that. I'm not sure if you guys have used Friendster before. That was during the days even before Facebook came in. Of course. It's always about experimenting. In fact, Initially, I focused a lot on using Facebook over the years. I think since 2007. So the way I post, as I mentioned, it's quite strategic. It's really leveraging on how those platforms manage their algorithm behind it. So, for example, on Twitter, they give a lot of priorities for threads. If you do those kind of bite-sized threads, it actually generates a lot of engagement. impressions as well. So in fact, on Twitter, I haven't really focused on Twitter not until in April, where I was really focusing on putting a lot of contents over there. Because initially it was just more on Facebook, right? But when I started to experiment on Twitter back in April, so I've been using the use case of telling Malaysian success stories locally and abroad. That actually garnered a lot of impression and engagement from followers. I get a lot of shares from that, retweets. So I was able to actually build up, or actually got about 20,000 followers within 4 weeks, so within a short period. So I believe that it was quite fast compared to other platforms. So on Facebook, of course, as you know, as I mentioned as well, it's the algorithm. The thing with Facebook is you can't really put in the caption to the photo. So for example, that's why I tend to recycle whatever available on Twitter already, because it's already making it nicely, like with the caption and the photo itself. So when I post it, people can just scroll down, very much like how they view the post on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I just use that method. I mean, I sometimes, because there's not enough time for you to really focus on developing the post for each platform, right? So I just recycle it, and it seems to work pretty well on Facebook as well. So that's why I do this. So it is what you see on these platforms. And in fact, I also do this on LinkedIn as well. So I just recycle the post from Twitter, and it seems to be doing quite well too.
Certainly seems to have worked for you quite well, actually. There's that post that you did about Ramli that really blew up. That's the one that we noticed the most.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that was your influx of followers was from that post, right?
Yeah, and also the story of Florence Tan. Dr. Florence Tan is a Malaysian who's the chief technologies in NASA in the States. So that actually blew up as well.
So another thing to note is that we also realized you are writing in Bahasa Melayu in some of your Facebook posts. Is there a certain reason why you do so?
I think that is quite strategic as well, because as you know, I want to tell my followers that Malaysians are actually quite diverse. It is actually more than what they imagine, because I think probably you would have noticed that there are some negative posts centering around that Malaysians do not Malay well and those kind of things, right? So I think I just want to prove that I think in general Malaysians do speak Malay quite well. In fact, many of my colleagues, even at AERODYNE, who are Chinese, they speak Malay really, really well. So I just want to, and of course it was also an experiment as well. I want to see what's the level of engagement if I write in Malay. So it actually went pretty well. It seems to be getting a lot of engagements as well. So for me, I think what I'm trying to say is because the algorithm from Facebook and Twitter, they change all the time, right? So you need to be able to do experimentation, see what works, see what doesn't work. So it's always a learning process for me every day. So when I post stuff.
So strategically only face them on Facebook, correct?
Say that again?
Because you strategically only face like content in Bahasa Melayu on Facebook, correct? Or do you also do it on Twitter? So why not Twitter as well, actually?
Actually, I have plans, but I haven't got the content just yet. But it is one of the plans as well. And because of course, Facebook, you're able to crop up a long paragraph or long content, right? Whereby in Twitter you have to really split the stories and everything. So it has to be really customized, and so that's why even on Facebook I also just sometimes have ideas, so I just put a photo of my cat.
Yeah, that's
next question, sir.
So I think I wanted to kind of switch gears a bit and talk about it's still kind of on topic. So I want to talk more about like the stories you share, right? So there's a lot of information in your stories, like speaking of like the Ramly burger story and like how things are ranked in Malaysia, etc. Like, so I wanted to ask, like, how do you usually find these stories and how do you verify them? So yeah, what should we do if we like Troy, like what would we do if you encounter a mistake in the story, or how would you go about dealing with that?
Okay. So what's the funny thing is a lot of the stories that I put on Twitter, for example, it's already there. I mean, you can find them online already. People have written about them, but of course they were written in blog format or more long form, right? I think nowadays, in today's context, people probably just do not want to read so much, especially when they scroll on their devices. They just want to scroll quickly, see what's interesting content. So I think Twitter actually helps to help address, meaning you're able to do bite-sized content, right? You don't have to really write long content. Still pushing out the objectives or whatever points that you want to what your audience wants to see. Yes, I only just Google up for those information if there's thing that can inspire more Malaysians, for example. And of course, once I found the stories, and then that's when I doing a bit of my copywriting skills, condensing those sentences, making them short, making them readable as well. So yeah, and of course, sometimes I bump into some contents out of the blue. Just for example, I wrote about Proton's success in Kenya, which is you don't really I haven't found anything that is related to that. So it was just coincidentally I was just googling for some keywords. I think I was googling like successful companies in Africa or something like that. So I saw Proton, and as you know, the story revolves around how Proton Saga has become the number one sedan, yes, in Kenya. So which is I think that's quite interesting, right? And of course, in relation to that, I think a lot of Malaysians say if they were to see any Malaysian cars on the road overseas, they would feel proud. And even sometimes, I think I remember even studying in the UK as well, in my early days. When I saw a rice cooker that has the label of made in Malaysia, I said, wow, this was made in Malaysia. It's a rice cooker. So those kind of stories. And yeah, I think mostly you can find them online, but lately, because from the followers, they have also been tagging me as well. And then they said, hey, this is an interesting story. So I just posted something on Twitter just about half an hour ago. You can have a look. It's about this student, a Malaysian student who's been successful at Princeton University. So somebody tagged me on that, so I tweet about that.
Definitely worth a look later on.
Yes.
I think Adeline has something else to add.
I just saw it actually.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, continuing on. So, we actually see you touch a lot on Muslims and Islam in several of your posts. So, some of the examples can be the man from Ghana performing his art, Muslim inventions, top Quran producer, how that helps Muslims practice their faith, and on. So, are there any particular reasons on why you touch more onto this topic?
Well, not really. I mean, because I'm pretty diverse, right? So even myself, when I grew up, I'm actually from Sabah. I grew up in this in an environment where I interact with all races. In fact, my sister converted to Muslim, and of course, I have a lot of Muslim friends as well. But it's just that it was just coincidentally that I get those kind of content. I just want to build around it and see what is the interaction like, what is the engagement like. So I'm actually looking forward to put other types of content as well, not just related to that, actually.
So have you actually ever faced any criticism for sharing topics related to Islam or Muslims when, because you yourself are not Muslim, if I'm not wrong?
Yeah, I've not. No, so far, I think nothing has happened. Except there was, when I posted about the thing about Malaysia is the second largest producer of Quran, right? Because I was actually took a sentence out of a review of that place from TripAdvisor, I think. So they mentioned about that they have different versions of the Quran. Actually, there's no different version. There was only one version. It's just the writing style that was different. So that was actually the context. I did not get it right because I was just taking it verbatim from that person who made the review. So of course I corrected it and say just to clarify, there's no other versions of Quran. There's only one version. It's just the writing style was different. So sometimes you just have to clarify things, right? And of course, the problem with Twitter is you're not able to edit the tweets. Well, once it's out, especially if you write a long threads, right? You don't want to spend time writing them again. It takes a lot of time. Sometimes it takes about 2 hours to do a thread. So sometimes you just have to add an additional tweet and say, okay, this is the correction. And hopefully people will read it.
Yeah, let's see what happens under Elon Musk's Twitter, because we all know he recently procured Twitter, right? Let's hope he brings the edit feature to Twitter that we've all been waiting for so long.
I know.
Okay, I guess I want to switch it up again. Just want to, since we are students, and like little anecdote, I want to leave something for the students out there. Sorry, there's a bit of noise outside my house right now. So because students do a lot of writing, right? And we are so integrated with social media now. I want to know is there any insights? Like you mentioned early on, writing these posts on social media, like on Twitter, it's helped with your copywriting, it's helped with your writing style. So is there anything you would like to share that you picked up along the way on this journey of being a storyteller on social media for the students?
Yeah, I think probably one of the things that we don't really, at least during my time, during school, we didn't get to learn about storytelling. But as you know, storytelling is actually one of the most important things that you should be learning. It relates to what you do today, what you're going to do tomorrow, even in your career. When you sell things, you need to be knowing how to storytell. If you do pitch decks, for example, if you want to pitch to investors, you want to present your ideas. I mean, if you put storytelling elements, you will actually get the maximum impact from that. So I think for now, you can get a lot of resources online in terms of storytelling. You can easily find them. It's just more on, getting the knowledge is one thing, practicing is one thing. So once you have gained the knowledge, try to experiment, write something, depending on your audience. Sometimes maybe your audience wouldn't want to read so much, so try to keep them short. And Twitter is actually a good place to practice this, because you are forced to, to keep it to a maximum 160 characters per post, right? Or per tweet. So that actually helps you, how do I compress this sentence with 20 words into just maybe 5 to 8 words, for example. So then when you do it more often, it's going to be second nature to you. It'll be much easier for you to do this kind of tweet or kind of storytelling eventually.
Right. I think that's exactly what I was looking for. That's pretty inspiring, if I'm being honest, for a lot of us. Because all too often we're so nervous about writing sometimes. I know a lot of people in my class, especially, they kind of have a kind of adverse at, they don't like writing. They kind of, when you hear writing, I don't want to do writing. But I think, practice makes perfect, right? Like all things. And sometimes you just have to put those things we've learned into action. Exactly. And it takes the first step.
Yeah. And also I just want to add, sometimes when you learn in school, right, you're taught to how to make your wordings fluffy, write fluffy stuff. But I think in today's context, especially if you're online, you just want to reduce that, make it straight to the point, because people they don't want to read online, especially on the screen. If it's long text, you just want to get straight to the point. So you should be thinking about that. So even I also share some of the things that how Apple does their copywriting on their website. Everything is so short, everything's punchy, it's easy, so it gets straight to the what the consumer wants and what do they want to understand, make it easy for them to purchase. So there's elements of psychology as well. Yeah, you can read it up online.
Yeah. All right. I think, Adeline, is there anything you else you would like to add?
I think it's really amazing how, you can portray this idea of storytelling digitally online, because I don't think I've ever seen that personally. Because like you said, like we've learned from young that you have to make things fluffy, you have to make it long. So a lot of the time, a lot of articles are very long. So I think it's really amazing how you spread a different kind of light and opinion on storytelling, because no one has ever done this kind of thing, at least from what I know lah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've really like carved out your own little niche on the internet.
Yeah.
Really cool. It's very Richard Kerr.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool what you're doing, because like the internet in a sea of like super negative stuff like all the time.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook a lot and Twitter a lot, and I read it's usually negative, and it becomes it's become the norm, right? It's become such a normal thing.
It's very draining.
Things that
well.
we're kind of we're kind of tuned to that, and it's like to see posts like yours, it's super refreshing to have just that hit of positivity sometimes. So really, we gotta thank you for that actually, because it's really inspiring what you do. Respect to you, sir. Pretty awesome.
Tough job, but someone has
to do it. It's a thankless job, but somebody's got to do it. And thank you, Richard, for being the one to do that. So I think that kind of wraps up our interview for a little podcast session, because we don't have a lot of time this evening and we don't want to eat up too much of your time. But just want to say, on behalf of the entire Ventures team, for us here, Adeline and myself, we want to thank you so much for joining us here tonight, Richard. And I hope that for the people tuning in, listening to this, watching this, that you took away something from this. So once again, thank you, Richard Kerr, for being here tonight. And thank you for sharing all those little tidbits of information of us, little pearls of wisdom here and there. That's it for us. Thank you. We'll catch you guys next time.
All right. Thank you, Adeline. Thank you, Samuel.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.